My son said it was for my own good when he left me in that nursing home. Michael couldn't even look me in the eye as the door clicked shut behind him. His wife, Susan, smiled that sweet, poisonous smile and patted my hand. They'd taken my house, my accounts, my freedom, and called it love. They thought I was old, weak, finished, but I wasn't losing my mind. I was taking notes. Weeks later, when I bought the entire nursing home in secret, they came running. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. They have just finished signing papers, documents that give them complete power of attorney over my life, convinced by a doctor they found, a doctor they paid, that my mild cognitive decline makes me a danger to my own finances. The emotional beat that hits me isn't sadness. It's a cold, sharp shock of betrayal that feels like ice water being poured directly into my veins. It's followed by the hot, helpless rage of a king being deposed by his own utterly mediocre prince. They see an old man, frail and confused, a problem to be managed and filed away. My body is old, yes. The joints ache, the posture is stooped, but my mind, the mind that built 2 companies from the ground up, is a steel trap. And in this moment, it is operating with a terrifying, painful clarity. I don't see a loving son and his concerned wife. I see 2 vultures circling what they believe is a dying animal, impatient for the feast. The twist is that they're so blinded by their own greed, they can't see the truth. They're celebrating a checkmate when I haven't even moved my first pawn. "We'll be back on Sunday," Susan says. Her smile is thin as a razor wire. "Try to settle in." I say nothing. I offer them no fight, no tears, no satisfaction. I just stand in the center of the small, grim room and watch them go. The hook is the sound of their footsteps fading down the linoleum hall, leaving me not with despair, but with a single, burning thought that solidifies into a diamond-hard certainty. The game has just begun. The first week at Golden Sunset Meadows is a living hell of scheduled mediocrity. Breakfast at 7 a.m., lukewarm oatmeal. Activities at 10 a.m., uninspired crafts. Lunch at noon, mystery meat. And the palpable, cloying scent of decay and disinfectant hanging over it all. The mini-crisis is not a single event, but the crushing, cumulative weight of it. The loneliness is a physical presence in the room, and the realization that I am now just a number, room 2B, is a humiliation that burns deeper than any insult. I am a ghost in the machine, and the machine is designed to slowly grind you into dust. In my solitude, my mind drifts back. I am flooded with memories, each one a fresh cut. I see myself selling my first successful company, a software firm I bled for, and using a significant portion of the profit to finance Michael's own tech startup. He called it seed money. It was the fruit of my entire life's work. I see myself at the bank, my signature next to his on the loan for the mansion he and Susan now live in, a house I have only been invited to for holidays. I made him. I built the very foundation he now stands upon, and he has repaid me by burying me alive. The emotional beat is a bitter, acidic nostalgia. My only reprieve is the bleak common room. It is there I meet Arthur, a retired forensic accountant with eyes that miss nothing, a man whose cynicism is so profound it's almost an art form. He too was abandoned by his family. We play chess on a warped board with a missing pawn. During one of our games, he gestures vaguely at the drab surroundings. "You know, he says, not looking up from the board. "This place is a cash cow, run by absolute fools. A smart man could buy this whole chain for a song, if he knew where to cut." The twist isn't the move he makes on the board. It's the idea he plants in my mind. A tiny, impossible, audacious seed. "For a song," he said. The hook is the first spark of a real plan, a plan so outrageously ambitious it makes me smile for the first time in a week. My phone privileges are limited to 30 minutes a day, monitored by a nurse at a central desk. It's part of their protocol for residents with cognitive issues, a cage disguised as care. I make dozens of pointless calls to weather hotlines and time-of-day services for the first few days, establishing a pattern of harmless eccentricity. Then, on Thursday, I make the one call that matters. It is not to my son. It is not to a lawyer he knows. It is to a number he has never seen, a direct line to a woman whose name he has never heard. The mini-crisis is the constant threat of being overheard. I speak in low tones, turning my back to the room, the receiver cupped tightly to my ear. "The weather is turning, just as we discussed," I say, using one of our old codes. "It's time to move the assets from the summer house." The emotional beat is a surge of long-dormant power washing through me. Hearing the calm, capable voice of my private wealth manager, a brilliant young woman I've mentored for years, is like a jolt of lightning to a dead battery. It's a link to the world where I am not a patient, but a titan. The reveal is the truth I have guarded for over a decade, a secret kept even from my own son. When I sold my first company, I told Michael I was retiring on the profits. That was a lie. It was a partial lie. I used a third of the money for him, a third for my own comfortable retirement, and the final third, the largest portion, I funneled into a silent, untraceable portfolio of venture capital and angel investments. It is a fortune that exists in the shadows, managed through a series of holding companies and offshore accounts, so complex that even a forensic accountant would weep. I am not just a comfortable old man. I am a secret sovereign, a ghost with a war chest so immense my son could not even conceive of it. I explained the situation to her in clipped, coded sentences. She understands immediately. The hook is my quiet, firm instruction that ends the call, the words that seal my family's fate. I want you to begin the process of acquiring a portfolio of elder care facilities. Start with this one. To the staff and management of Golden Sunset Meadows, I am just a quiet old man, room 2B. My only activity of note is the chess club I start with Arthur in the corner of the common room. We sit for hours over the warped board, speaking in low murmurs. To anyone watching, we are just two retirees passing the time. In reality, we are a two-man intelligence agency. While my manager, Anya, and her anonymous firm begin their official due diligence from the outside, Arthur and I conduct our own reconnaissance from the inside. The mini-crisis is the daily, soul-crushing evidence of neglect we witness. Food deliveries that are suspiciously small, medication carts that are chronically understocked, overworked and underpaid nurses whose despair is palpable. The emotional beat is my own personal anger transforming into a fierce protective empathy for the other residents, these forgotten parents and grandparents who deserve dignity, not just survival. Arthur, with his accountant's mind, has an eye for the small details that betray large crimes. He befriends the kitchen staff and learns that their food budget has been cut by 40%, yet the billing records remain the same. I speak with the nurses and learn about the chronic shortage of basic supplies, from clean linens to latex gloves. We are not just uncovering mismanagement, we are uncovering a pattern. The twist comes one afternoon. A new nurse, young and idealistic, is fired on the spot for complaining to the regional manager about the conditions. Before she leaves, in a fit of righteous fury, she slips a piece of paper into Arthur's hand while he's pretending to be asleep in his chair. Later, at our chessboard, he unfolds it. It's a printout from the facility's internal accounting software. It shows massive weekly payments for medical consulting to a company Arthur has never heard of. "A shell corporation," he whispers, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of the hunt. The hook is the grim smile that spreads across his face as he slides another, smaller piece of paper across the board to me. On it is a single damning account number, traced back to the regional manager himself. We don't just have suspicions anymore. We have a weapon. The call I have been waiting for comes on a Tuesday. It's Michael. His voice is strained, stripped of its usual condescending cheer. It's the voice of a man standing on a ledge. His latest business venture, a risky play in cryptocurrency, is failing spectacularly. The market turned and he's facing a margin call. He needs a significant cash infusion, and he needs it within 48 hours. He explains this not as a request, but as a problem we are going to solve. The mini-crisis is hearing the undisguised panic in his voice and feeling a vestigial flicker of the old paternal instinct, the deeply ingrained urge to save my son from his own folly. For a moment, I almost waver. But then I remember the click of the lock. The cold resolve hardens my heart like setting concrete. This is not about saving him. This is about him trying to use the key to a bank he thinks he owns. I don't understand, Michael, I say, letting a tremor of feigned confusion enter my voice. I play the part they cast me in, the befuddled old man. That kind of money, I don't have that. My accounts are mostly for Social Security, you know. The emotional beat is the silence on the other end of the line, a silence so cold it's practically audible. And then the rage. The reveal isn't what he says, but how he says it. "What do you mean you don't have it? I have the power of attorney. I looked. The accounts they're practically empty. Where is it? What did you do with it?" He has, in his fury, just confessed everything. He wasn't calling to ask for a loan. He was calling because he had already tried the key, had already attempted to plunder my life savings, and had found the vault empty. The well he thought he'd seized was already dry. I stay silent, letting his rage consume him. The hook is his parting shot, a threat laced with the desperation of a cornered animal. "You find that money, Dad. You find it, or we'll have to sell the house to cover my losses." My house. The house my wife and I built. The house he saw as just another asset. The information Arthur and I gathered was more than just a weapon. It was a key. Anya, my manager, confirmed my suspicions. The Golden Sunset Meadows, a faceless private equity firm in another state, had been looking to offload their underperforming assets for months. The entire chain was riddled with mismanagement, but our facility was a particularly rotten apple. They were losing money and facing potential lawsuits. The emotional beat was a dark, cold satisfaction. The feeling of a master chess player seeing the board exactly as he'd envisioned it. We now had leverage. Anya's team made a single anonymous phone call, a concerned citizen tip to the parent company's board of directors, complete with the regional manager's name and the shell corporation's account number. The result was immediate and glorious chaos. The regional manager was suspended. Auditors were dispatched. The company's stock dipped. What was once an underperforming asset was now a full-blown public relations toxic waste dump. Their quiet plan to sell had become an urgent need to amputate. This was the strategic victory, the moment to press our advantage. But I didn't want to just win. I wanted to control the terms of surrender completely. A lowball offer now would seem opportunistic and might trigger a bidding war from other corporate vultures smelling blood in the water. So I gave Anya a counterintuitive instruction. The twist was not to go low, but to go high. I said over the phone from the nursing station, "Make them an all-cash offer, slightly above their new panicked valuation. But there are two conditions. The sale must be fast-tracked to close in 30 days, and the identity of the buyer must remain completely, irrevocably confidential under a series of ironclad NDAs." It was an offer designed to be irresistible. It was a lifeline, a clean escape from their mess. It solved all their problems at once. They wouldn't question it. They would simply be grateful. The hook came 2 days later, not in a call, but in a simple coded text message on the burner phone a friendly nurse had smuggled in for me. It was from Anya. "They've cated the bait. The asset is ours in 30 days. 30 days is a long time to wait when you're a king in exile. I couldn't yet reveal my hand, couldn't make any grand changes, but I could not sit by and do nothing. I could begin to change the atmosphere, to plant seeds of hope in the barren soil of golden sunset meadows. From my command center, the wobbly table of the chess club, I began to orchestrate a series of small miracles. Using Anya as an intermediary, I arranged for several anonymous charitable donations to the home, routed through a local church to make them untraceable. The mini-crisis was the staff's utter bewilderment. One Monday, a brand new 70-inch widescreen television appeared in the common room, professionally installed before anyone had even finished breakfast. The next week, shelves were filled with hundreds of new large-print books and a library of classic films. Then, a professional-grade espresso and coffee machine arrived, along with a daily delivery of fresh pastries. The emotional beat was the quiet, profound joy I felt in watching the other residents. I saw faces that had been slack with despair for months light up with simple, unadulterated pleasure. I saw small groups gathering to watch movies, people who hadn't spoken in years now debating the merits of a well-made cappuccino. These were not just amenities, they were injections of dignity, reminders that they were still human beings deserving of comfort and joy. The twist came during a surprise visit from Michael and Susan. They had clearly come to check on me, or more accurately, to see if their asset was still breathing. They walked into the common room and stopped dead, their eyes scanning the new luxuries with undisguised suspicion. "What is all this?" Michael demanded, gesturing at the new television with a sweep of his hand. "Where did this come from? Have you been giving your money away to these people?" His tone was accusatory, as if he'd caught me cheating on him. I looked up from my chessboard, meeting his gaze with the most placid, serene expression I could muster. The hook was my response, delivered calmly and with a small, mysterious smile. "I don't know, son. I guess there's a new angel investor." My son's desperation, it turned out, had a much deeper bottom than I had imagined. A week after his visit, he arrived, alone. It was late in the afternoon, during the quiet hour when residents were napping. He looked terrible. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his face was pale and haggard, and his eyes had the wild, hunted look of an animal caught in a trap. The mini-crisis was the raw, ugly confrontation that followed. He didn't bother with pleasantries. He paced my small room like a caged tiger, his voice a low, furious growl. His business was gone. The crypto market hadn't rebounded, it had crashed. His creditors were not just calling, they were threatening legal action. He was on the brink of complete and total ruin. He didn't beg, he demanded. He accused me of hiding money, of being senile and paranoid, of selfishly destroying his life to protect a few $1,000s he was entitled to. The emotional beat was the final, agonizing death of the love I once had for the boy he used to be. The man standing before me was a stranger, a creature of pure, undiluted greed. Then he pulled a sheaf of papers from his briefcase. He threw them on my nightstand. The top sheet was the power of attorney document I already knew about, but beneath it was a new document his lawyers had clearly just drafted. It would give him total, irrevocable control of all my assets, both known and, as one clause chillingly specified, as any and all assets subsequently discovered. The reveal was his ultimatum, hissed through clenched teeth. "You will sign this, Dad, right now, or I swear to God you will die in this place. I will sell the house, I will take what's left, and you will be left here to rot. I will never visit you again." He placed a heavy, expensive pen on top of the papers. He left, slamming the door behind him. The hook was the silence that filled the room, a silence only broken by the frantic beating of my own heart and the cold, hard weight of the pen he left in my hand. The emotional valley, when it came, was deeper and darker than I could have prepared for. My son's ultimatum was cruel, but it was the call I received the next day that truly broke me. It was a whispered, tearful call from a number I didn't recognize. It was my granddaughter, Amy, the one bright spot in my fractured family, calling from a friend's phone. "Grandpa," she sobbed, her voice small and broken, "why won't you help Dad? Please, you have to help him." The mini-crisis was the sharp, undeniable pain of her words, a dagger twisting in a wound I didn't know was still so raw. "Mom left," she cried. "She packed a bag and she's gone. And Dad, he's going to lose everything, the house, everything. He keeps saying, 'It's your fault.'" "It's your fault." The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. In my quest for justice, in my righteous war against my son, I had allowed the shrapnel to hit the one person who was truly innocent in all of this. The emotional beat was a wave of profound, suffocating guilt. I looked at the faded photograph of a smiling 10-year-old Amy on my nightstand, the only personal item I had brought with me to this place. Was my victory worth her tears? Was my revenge worth her pain? For the first time, I questioned my entire plan. I sat there in the silence of my room long after the call ended, staring at that photograph. This couldn't be a simple game of punishment and reward. It couldn't just be about destroying Michael. That wasn't a legacy. It was a wasteland. A revelation washed over me, a moment of absolute clarity. My revenge had to be about building something better, not just for myself and these residents, but for her. It had to be a legacy she could one day be proud of. The hook was the urgent, decisive call I made to my lawyer, my voice filled with a new, unshakable purpose. "I need to amend the Foundation's charter," I said, my eyes still locked on Amy's smiling face. "I want to create a fully funded, protected trust for my granddaughter's education and future, and I want to do it today, before anything else." The final papers were signed at an off-site location by Anya, a ghost representing a ghost. The money, wired from an account in a country my son couldn't find on a map, was transferred. The deal was closed. And just like that, it was done. The new discovery was not a piece of information, but the sheer, unadulterated feeling of it. I was sitting on the lumpy sofa in the shabby common room of Golden Sunset Meadows, a resident of a facility that I now secretly and completely owned outright. I, Room 2B, was the owner. I looked around the room with new eyes. I saw the water-stained ceiling tiles, the cracked linoleum floor, the worn-out, hopeless faces of the other residents. But I no longer saw a depressing end-of-life warehouse. I saw a project. I saw potential. I saw the raw materials for my masterpiece. The twist, the move that no one could have anticipated, was that I did nothing. I didn't stand up and make a grand announcement. I didn't fire the surly head nurse on the spot. I simply sat there with Arthur across from me at our chessboard, and I played out our game. I held a power so absolute and so invisible it felt almost godlike. The greatest power, I realized, is the power that no one knows you have. I was a king disguised as a pawn, and I was finally ready to move across the board. I took one of Arthur's rooks. He grumbled under his breath. The afternoon sun streamed through the grimy windows. It was a perfectly, beautifully ordinary moment. The hook was the sight of a sleek black car, a model I recognized as belonging to a high-end livery service, pulling up to the front entrance. It was a car that had no business being at a place like this, but I knew exactly who was in it. The next phase of my plan had just arrived. A polite, impeccably dressed man and woman emerged from the black car and walked through the front doors of Golden Sunset Meadows. They were the new management team I had personally headhunted, a formidable duo known in the industry for turning around failing facilities with a combination of sharp business acumen and genuine compassion. They didn't make a scene. They calmly entered the main office and informed the staff that the home had been acquired by a new, private philanthropic organization dedicated to elder care reform. The corrupt facility manager, a woman whose cruelty was matched only by her incompetence, was summarily fired, her personal effects packed in a cardboard box and left on the curb. She was, I was later told, in a state of complete shock. The mini-crisis was the controlled chaos that erupted among the remaining staff. Fear and uncertainty were written on every face. But the new director, the woman I had chosen, was a master. She gathered the staff, and instead of threatening them, she spoke of a new beginning. She announced an immediate, across-the-board wage increase, a better health insurance plan, and a new, higher staff-to-resident ratio. The emotional beat was the dawning look of hope, first on the faces of the staff, and then, as the news spread, on the faces of my fellow residents. Later that day, the director held a residents' meeting. She announced immediate improvements to the food, the activities, and the quality of care. The reveal was her first official act, the formation of a resident advocacy board to help oversee the transition and ensure the residents' voices were heard. And, she said, looking directly at me with a small knowing smile, I would like to nominate our own Mr. Edward Vance to serve as its chairman. A ripple of applause went through the room. It was in that exact moment that the hook appeared. A perfect cinematic climax. A car, my son's car, screeched into the parking lot, driven with a reckless urgency. He and Susan had clearly heard the news of the sale, and they had come running, their faces pale with terror, terrified that a new owner might just throw their inconvenient old father out onto the street. Michael and Susan burst into the common room like a SWAT team, their faces a mask of panicked, performative concern. They scanned the room, a room now buzzing with an unfamiliar energy of optimism, and found me. I was sitting in a comfortable new armchair, one of the first new acquisitions, deep in conversation with the new director. They rushed over, ready to play their role as dutiful children to a new unknown authority. "We're so glad to see you're handling the transition so well," Michael said to the director, his voice slick with false charm. He placed a heavy, possessive hand on my shoulder. "We're his family," he continued, as if that explained everything. "We handle his affairs." The emotional beat was the delicious electric tension of the moment. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. My son stood there asserting an authority he no longer had, in a building he did not know was lost to him, to a man he believed was a powerless pawn. The new director, a woman I had hired specifically for her spine of solid steel, looked from Michael's condescending hand on my shoulder to my own calm, waiting face. I gave her the slightest of nods, a barely perceptible gesture of permission. She turned her cool, analytical gaze upon my son. The smile did not reach her eyes. The twist, when it came, was not a shout, but a quiet, devastatingly polite sentence that reorganized the entire universe for my son. "I'm sorry, sir," she said, her voice clear and precise, cutting through the low hum of the room. "But I must ask you not to disturb the owner." The silence that followed was absolute. Michael's hand froze on my shoulder. The fake smile on his face cracked. He stared at the director, then at me, then back at the director. The gears of his mind were grinding, trying to process a reality that was simply impossible. The hook was the sound of his breath catching in his throat, a sharp, ragged gasp as his entire world tilted on its axis and then shattered into a million pieces. The what?" he stammered. We convened in my room, a room which, overnight, had been transformed. The shabby furniture was gone, replaced by comfortable, elegant pieces. A large window, once grimy, now offered a sunlit view of the gardens. Here, in my new seat of power, the final pathetic act of their play unfolded. They tried everything. First came the blustering threats of legal action. Michael waved the power of attorney papers in the air, his voice shaking with impotent rage. Anya, my manager, who was now present, calmly informed him that since those papers were signed based on a fraudulent medical assessment, a fact our legal team was prepared to prove in court, along with his own financial desperation as motive, they were not only null and void, but potential evidence in a criminal fraud investigation. Then came the tearful appeals to my love, Susan's specialty. The insults were so profound in their hypocrisy that I almost laughed. Finally, when all else failed, came the desperate, ugly begging. The mini-crisis was Michael's complete and utter breakdown. He collapsed into a chair, his face in his hands, and confessed everything. The millions in debt from his crypto disaster, the imminent foreclosure on the mansion, the fact that Susan had finally officially left him for good. He was a broken man, stripped of all his arrogance, a pathetic creature drowning in the consequences of his own choices. The emotional beat was not the feeling of victory I had anticipated. It was a profound, weary sadness. I looked at the wreckage of the man before me, and I felt nothing but a deep, hollow pity. He looked up at me, his eyes red and swollen, waiting. He was waiting for me to do what I had always done. Write a check, make a call, save him one last time. The twist was my offer. "I will not pay your debts," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "I will not restore your failed business, and I will not buy you back your empty mansion." He deflated, the last glimmer of hope dying in his eyes. "But," I continued, "I will offer you a job." He stared at me, uncomprehending. "This facility is undergoing a major renovation. We need people. I am offering you an entry-level, salaried position on the maintenance and grounds crew. You will report to the head of maintenance at 7 a.m. every morning. You will work, you will pay your own debts, and you will learn what it means to earn a second chance." The hook was the look on his face, a maelstrom of rage, humiliation, and for the very first time, a flicker of something that might have been a desperate, terrifying hope. He had nothing left, and I had just offered him the one thing he'd never had: a start. Weeks turned into months. The world outside my window began to change. Golden Sunset Meadows, a name that tasted of lies and decay, was officially retired. The facility was now named the Helen Center, after my late wife, a woman whose entire life was a testament to the compassion this place had so sorely lacked. The transformation was miraculous. The walls were painted in warm, cheerful colors. The gardens, once overgrown with weeds, were now blooming with life. The halls, once silent and grim, were now filled with the sounds of music, chatter, and genuine laughter. My purpose was no longer a secret. I was the chairman, the founder, the driving force behind the renewal of this small world, and the work filled my days with a meaning I hadn't felt in years. The emotional beat was a deep, abiding contentment, the feeling of a ship finding its safe harbor after a long and violent storm. Then came the new discovery. It wasn't a secret or a revelation. It was a sound, the simple, rhythmic sound of a hammer echoing from the West Wing where a new physical therapy center was being built. It was Michael. He took the job. He was a ghost among the staff. He was quiet, sullen, and he never made eye contact. He wore the simple blue uniform of the maintenance crew, but he showed up every day, on time.
He fixed the leaky faucets and the rattling air conditioners. He repaired the broken wheeled chairs and replaced the flickering fluorescent lights. He never complained. He never asked for a thing. He just worked. He was paying a different kind of debt now, one measured not in dollars, but in sweat and humility. One afternoon, I returned to my room to find a simple, hand-carved birdhouse sitting on my windowsill. It was beautifully made, the joints perfect, the wood sanded smooth. There was no note. There didn't need to be. I knew whose hands had made it. The hook was me later that evening, picking up the phone and dialing a number I now knew by heart. It was the first time I had called it in months. "Amy," I said when my granddaughter answered, "I think it's time you came for a visit."
This wasn't an ending, but a new, quiet rhythm. Amy visits every weekend now. She is the light of the Helen Center. She reads to residents whose eyes have grown weak. She plays piano in the common room. And she brings a youthful energy that reminds everyone here that the world is still spinning, still full of life. She sees her father, my son, in his work clothes, his hands calloused, his face perpetually smudged with dirt or grease. He is humbled, but he is working. And for the first time, I see a tentative, fragile respect in her eyes when she looks at him. He is no longer a failed titan of finance. He is a man who fixes things that are broken. The emotional beat is a quiet, cathartic closure that settles over me. My revenge was not, in the end, to destroy my son. It was to dismantle the prison of greed he had built for himself, to strip him of everything he thought he was so that he might have a chance to discover what he could be. The humane justice is complete. The final reveal is not a dramatic confrontation, but this quiet scene. I am sitting on a new bench in the newly dedicated Helen Garden, a riot of roses and lavender that scents the air. Amy is sitting beside me, her hand resting on my arm. We are watching Michael. He is across the garden, helping Arthur, my old friend from the chess club, stake a row of young tomato plants. He is showing Arthur how to tie the twine without bruising the delicate stems. He is patient. He is kind. He is a stranger, and yet, in this moment, he is the son I always hoped I would have. I did not regain my old life. I built a new one from its ashes. And this legacy, born from the deepest betrayal and cultivated with a quiet, unyielding purpose, is worth more than any fortune I ever possessed.